Studying in medical school is a stressful experience. You're constantly being given new information which you're expected to learn and then understand. The stress then goes up a level when you have exams. You're expected to regurgitate all this information that you've been learning throughout the year. But what happens if you fail your exams? That in itself is even more stressful. You're now worried about the fact you've now got to spend your summer studying again, how you're going to go about telling people that you failed your exams and what impact that's going to have. You're also concerned that the medical school might kick you out of medical school altogether. And are you going to end up becoming a doctor at the end of all of this? Hi, my name's Colin. I'm a junior doctor working in the UK. I'm also currently doing a Masters in Medical Education as well. Now there's two reasons why I'm talking about failing in medical school. The first one is, as I just said, I'm doing a Masters in Medical Education, and recently I had to look at remediation within medical school. I found it quite an interesting topic. And the second reason is, I've been there, failed the exams, had to resit them, had to resit the year, and then still graduated and become a doctor at the end of it. I found it quite interesting just looking back at my experiences of failing in medical school and remediation more generally, and what I could have done differently if I was able to go back a little bit. Having looked into it a bit more, I'm hoping this will be quite useful for some other students who may find themselves in the position where they've failed their exams, or they might be worried about failing their exams and what they can do about it to either prevent it or help them get through the remediation process. So I've come up with 5 general steps which anyone could really use if you failed your exams to try and get yourself through the resetting process. So these 5 steps involve getting support from others, looking at what went wrong, so reflecting, identifying if there's anything you can do to change your studying technique, 4, looking at what extenuating circumstances affected your exam, and 5, speak to the university, get support from the university. Now, the first thing you're going to have to do after you fail your exams is tell other people that you failed. It's not a fun experience. You're not going to want to do it, but one of the best things you can do is tell other people. I'm not saying you have to tell everyone, but you're going to need someone to help support you get through this process. At the end of the day, if you're going to be resitting your exams, you're now going to have to spend a prolonged period studying again, and it's likely to be over the summer holidays when you've got friends and family out doing things, going on holiday, going to events, and you may have to miss out on these things. So some days you're going to be feeling pretty down, and that's fine, it happens. It's horrible at the time, but you can get through it. In order to do that, you're going to need support. I'm not saying announce it to the world, but what I am saying is that's talking to your parents or your family or some friends or your partner, whoever that may be. Just to have someone who's going to be able to help pick you back up when you're feeling pretty down about it. The other issue is you might not want to talk to some of your friends from medical school, and I can understand why. I wasn't too keen on it at the time because there is a sort of stigma around failing in medical school, and if you've got colleagues and friends who've passed, you're not going to really want to announce it to the world when they're, like I said, out on their summer holidays and you're back at medical school. But just find someone who you can vent to and who you can talk to. And unsurprisingly, there is evidence which backs this up. One study by Patel et al. In 2015 interviewed students who'd failed their exams, and one of the key things that these students identified was having support and having someone to talk to. And they recognised that having someone to talk to and having someone to support them through the process definitely helped. This study only interviewed a small number of medical students, but having experienced it myself, having someone to talk to definitely helps. Now, the next piece of advice I have for anyone who's failed in medical school is to reflect. Reflection is kind of part of the process of working in healthcare and being a doctor. You're constantly being asked to reflect on your own learning, your own experiences, what went well, what went wrong, what you can do going forward. It's something that just happens throughout your career, and you're constantly having to write things down as part of your portfolios and things like that. It's actually quite good to get good at reflecting, and you can be good at reflecting, as strange as that sounds. The reason it's important when you fail your exams in medical school is you need to identify what went wrong. You've been deemed academically capable enough to get into medical school in the first place, so something's led you off course, and you need to identify what that is. And it could be a whole host of things. Maybe your revision technique wasn't good enough, or you need to make some changes to the way you study. Or it could have been something completely out with medical school altogether. It could have been a family issue or a financial issue. Unless you identify what the issue is, you're not really going to be able to do anything about it. If you can't do something about it, you're just in the same place you were before you sat the original exam, and you're likely to end up with the same result. That's why you need to do something about it. Now, the third thing you can address if you failed your exams is your study technique. Now, I know I just said there might have been other reasons which contributed to you failing your exams, but the reality is studying's probably had an impact on your result. At the end of the day, you didn't know enough information when you went into the exam to pass the exam. So something's not quite went right. And now's a really good time to address this. If your study technique isn't great, you've now got the opportunity to change that. And it's really important because in medicine, it's a career of lifelong learning. You're constantly learning your information. And you're constantly having to study for upcoming exams, even when you graduate. If you get a good study technique down now, it will help you in the future. It's also important because a study, which I'll link down below, has shown that medical students who fail their exams are likely to fail them again. And the reason they're likely to fail them again is because they're likely to double down on the study techniques they used previously. Essentially, they don't change how they revise. That doesn't work. Address your revision techniques. Do something about it now. Now is your opportunity. And there's tons of information out there about good study techniques and poor study techniques. And some of the most common ones I'll go through now are going through all your notes with different coloured highlighters and making a nice colourful page won't help you. Studies have shown that it doesn't help you. Don't do it. Second thing is rereading all your notes. You've got these notes, you keep going back over and over and over and you keep reading them. Again, that doesn't work. I was guilty of that. I used to sit and go through all my notes and sit there and read them and think that I was taking it in just through reading these notes. It doesn't work. You don't retain the information. And you may understand it on the day of the revision, but a couple of days later you're just going to forget it. The third thing is don't rewrite your notes as well. If you're just copying your notes word for word into a different page or typing them up into a Word document, again, you're not going to retain the information. You need to do something with the information you're rewriting. For example, put it into your own words. Don't just copy it word for word, because again, you're not going to learn anything. The thing is, revision isn't supposed to be easy. Learning isn't supposed to be easy. The whole point of it is it's supposed to be challenging. If you're learning something, it will take you some time, it will take you some effort. But those are the most effective studying techniques. If you put effort into studying, it will help you in the long run. So there are revision techniques out there such as active recall or spaced repetition, and there's videos out there that go into these techniques in great depth. But they do work. Having to put that effort in helps you retain the information. And like I said, there's tons of resources out there. Take the time to learn how to study now and it will help you going forward. Don't be the person who doubles down on their poor revision technique and then ends up failing their exam again. Try and do something about it now and it will help you in the long run. Another issue that often crops up for students who failed their exams in medical school is external contributing factors. And what do I mean by that? Well, I mean things outside of medical school that have impacted your exams. Now, it's very easy when you're in medical school to think that your whole life is medical school and you're in this little bubble and everything you do revolves around medicine. And the reality is it's not the case. There's lots of other things that are going on in your life that can impact you and your exams. That might be your health, your mental health, your finances, relationships, an ongoing issue with your family. All these things impact you and therefore will impact your exam in medical school. And you might not be able to solve whatever issues are having an impact on your medical school exams, but you need to address these issues and you might be able to get support with them. This kind of links back to the support issue. Now, the issue is there's evidence which shows medical students don't like talking to the university about these issues, or they don't like talking to anyone about these issues. And the problem is if you don't acknowledge that there's other external contributing circumstances impacting your exams, it's very difficult to do anything about it. There's also this sort of rumour and fear that goes around medical school saying if I talk about something that isn't directly related to medicine as a reason for why I failed my exams, they'll kick me out or I won't be able to become a doctor. That's just not true. Another thing I've seen cropping up recently is if a medical student has something that's impacting their mental health, they don't want to talk about it because there's a fear that having an ongoing mental health issue is incompatible with being a doctor. That's not the case. And even the GMC state quite clearly there's very, very few circumstances where a mental health issue would prevent you from becoming a doctor. And I'll link that down in the description below. In talking about my own experiences of failing medical school, one of the contributing factors which impacted my medical school exams was finances, financial issues. I could probably do, in fact I will probably at some point do a whole video on this, but basically my financial situation changed when I was in medical school. This had a direct impact on how I was doing my exams. I spoke to the medical school about these issues, and to be fair to Glasgow University, they were great with me. They were able to help move my placements closer to where I was staying, which reduced the travel costs. They were also able to get me a bursary from a charity which helped support me through that year when I'd failed. Just speaking to the medical school about these issues helped me, one, address them, but two, just helped me get back on track and helped me with my upcoming exams. Now, the fifth tip I've got if you fail in medical school is take up offers of university support. And what do I mean by this? I'm not talking about the sort of extenuating circumstances and that side of it anymore. What I'm talking about is often universities will run classes over the summer or over the period when you have to resit your exams. These classes will be tailored to resitting students. So they're a great resource. They'll be specifically aimed at you and they'll be much smaller. So medical schools, a lot of them are huge. I went to Glasgow University, as I mentioned before. There's over 300 students in my class. You're not going to get that sort of one-to-one teaching or small group teaching all the time. And if you have an issue, you're unsure of something, most people don't really want to put their hand up in a lecture of 300 people, and to be honest, I can understand that. I wasn't one of those people that was particularly keen on doing that either. But these are much smaller classes, so you might have a class of 30, for example, or 15, or however many people have failed in your year. They're a good opportunity, and it also shows that you're invested in getting through this reset. The other good point about them is you might meet other people who you've not really come across before in your medical school because, like I said, they're so big. But they're in the same position as you, so you can help support each other, get yourself through it. And like I said before as well, you might not want to tell your friends who've already passed. Here's other students who have failed and are going to be doing it alongside you. So it's just a good opportunity to get some more support as well. And I realise that's kind of a running theme throughout this video is I keep saying get support, but it's a stressful experience. You're going to need the help. Hopefully you found these tips useful for if you failed in medical school. I have been there. I have resat and got through medical school and become a doctor at the end of it. I'm not saying that when I failed medical school that I used all these tips that I've just discussed, but having reflected on it and looked back and having studied it recently, these are definitely things that I would recommend, and these are things that I would implement now if I had to go back, if that makes any sense. Anyway, I hope you found this useful. If you have, please give this video a like, please subscribe to my channel, and hopefully I can create some more videos that are useful. Thanks.